Yes, Baroness Scotland, just give us a sense of what the Commonwealth Secretariat is doing for many countries like Uganda, which are, of course, part and parcel of the Commonwealth, to make sure we do come out of this particular pandemic with our heads on our necks.
Well, firstly, as you know, the Commonwealth is made up of 54 countries. That's about 2.5 billion people. And Uganda is a very proud member of the Commonwealth and has been so now since about 1962. And this pandemic has been quite extraordinary because it's reached its tentacles into all of our homes, into all of our lives, and therefore into all of our countries. And the way in which we've been able to respond has been very much influenced by our opportunity to come together, to share information, and to keep each other safe. And I think the first thing I have to say is I really want to congratulate the government of Uganda for its very proactive and swift response to COVID-19 through containment measures such as the closure of schools, the restrictions on travel, the use of hand sanitizers, the improved hand washing stations, and the social distancing and the lockdown. You'll know that information, that advice came very clearly from the World Health Organization, which we very much endorsed in our Commonwealth family. And because we know that all of our countries were fighting this, and this was a disease which was just unknown, it was new to all of us, we really saw how vitally important it was for us to pool our knowledge and our expertise from across the Commonwealth to help each other. And therefore, we created what came to be known as the coronavirus tracker, which was embedded in the Coronavirus Resource Centre, which is on our website at thecommonwealth.org, because we understood that if we were going to make the difference that we needed to make, we needed to have the help, the support, and the knowledge from all of us working together. And therefore, technologically, we created the coronavirus tracker, but we also looked at some of the consequences that were going to flow from the fact that we had locked down our airwaves and kept our people safe. One of the consequences of that has been financial, because we know the world will probably take a hit financially, right, up to about $2 trillion. But in the developing world, in our world, it's going to be about $220 billion. So we really have been looking at how do we address those economic issues and how we come together to take advantage of the Commonwealth advantage, which means it's about 21% cheaper, easier, faster for us to trade with each other. So we've got to think about how we will improve that. And from that has come the FinTech toolkit for a robust financial sector, things like the Commonwealth price sharing database for medical essentials, our disaster risk finance portal, and our Commonwealth Meridian, which is all about how we deal with debt. So many things, right, that have come together in order for us to help and to make a difference.
Lady Scotland, a few weeks ago, you're actually criticised very immensely, even the UK government saying arguably the same, when the Commonwealth Secretariat tried to organise a virtual conference with, of course, the 54 member states, many executives, or should I say, many legislators in these 54 countries, and there was a lot of criticism that came onto the Commonwealth for trying to organize a virtual summit at a time like this when, for all intents and purposes, even presidents are fighting for dear life. How do you address this? Was this the right time for you to be holding a summit?
Well, the most important thing is to say that as Secretary General of the Commonwealth, it is my duty to listen to all our member states and to listen very carefully to what they wanted, because as you all know, every country within the Commonwealth is equal. No one country has a bigger say than any other country. So it doesn't matter whether you are Nauru, which is the smallest country in the Commonwealth, or a country as small as Tuvalu, or if you are a country as big as Nigeria, 200 million people, or India, 1.35 million, or UK is 62 million. All of our countries are equal. And we put out, when it became clear that we were no longer able to hold the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Rwanda because of COVID, we asked our members what they would like. And so many of our members, the majority of our members, said they wanted to do that which every other international organization had done. They wanted to come together in solidarity. They wanted to talk about the consequences of COVID. They wanted to share the good things. They wanted to share the bad things. And they wanted to be able to express themselves and this solidarity which they had. And this is what they did. So in response to that request, we held the meeting, and 45 out of the 54 countries all came. And they had a very positive meeting where they talked about the technological issues they were facing. They talked about the research. They talked about the need for advocacy. And many of the small states said a huge thank you to the Secretariat for holding this meeting because they had requested it. And the important thing to understand is that equality. And if we, as the Secretariat, are asked by our member states to hold a meeting, then it is our duty. That is why the Secretariat was set up in 1965, to be the repository on behalf of all member states and to act on behalf of all member states. So I hear what you say in relation to the fact that some may have been critical, but the Secretariat, and indeed my role, is to respond to the whole Commonwealth, which is made up of equal sovereign states. And indeed, Uganda was one of those states where your president said he very much wanted to have this meeting. And of course, I would never disrespect the great President Museveni, who is filled with a great deal of wisdom. So we responded by holding the meeting that was asked for by our leaders and by our member states, and it was a remarkably successful and a very welcome meeting.
Lady Scotland, very kind words for the dear leader. Let's moving on. What is the future of the Commonwealth? On the other hand, we do have, on one hand, we do have, let's say, the Commonwealth, which has been around for, over 50 years. And
70 years now, 70 years.
Oh, 70 years. And we have newcomers on the block, like China, where by 2011, China had lent more to sub-Saharan Africa than the World Bank put together. Where does this leave the Commonwealth going forward? Don't you worry that maybe in the next 70 years you might have 15 members?
Well, there are a lot of countries, as you will know, particularly actually in Africa, who would like to join the Commonwealth. And it's really interesting to see why that is. And you will have seen your near neighbour, Rwanda, joined the Commonwealth, but Cameroon and a number of others who were never part of the old British construct have wanted to join us too. And the interesting question is, why is that? Well, partly it's because of what we stand for. We stand for democracy. We are conjoined by a belief in the rule of law. We have similar parliamentary structures, and we have sound principles in relation to good governance.
Lady Scotland,
if you look at the Ibrahim Index, our 19 members are either at the top of that independent assessment of good governance, or we're at the middle. So there are huge opportunities for us, not least in terms of trade, because there is this 21% advantage in Commonwealth countries trading with each other than non-Commonwealth countries. So I think we've got a lot to look forward to. to.
Lady Scotland, let me just take you back. You mentioned democracy there. You're admitting countries which are synonymous with changing constitutions so that strong men stick around, where I'm standing, arguably no exception. How do you then realign yourselves and say that the British government and, well, the United Kingdom and some of these countries where the leaders are realigning and changing constitutions to stick around for longer are actually at par? How does that work?
Well, let's just be clear about what our commitments are. All of our countries are committed to the values which are contained in our Commonwealth Charter, which every single country in the Commonwealth signed up to in 2013. And I'm sure you've looked at that charter, because that charter is very reflective of the Sustainable Development Goals which the rest of the world signed up to in 2015. And any new country who wishes to join our Commonwealth has to look at those values, and we have a whole process, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which will enable us to assess whether any new applicant is in fact seeking to align itself appropriately with those values. So no member state can join the Commonwealth unless that every single other member of the Commonwealth identify and are content for that country to join at the stage they're in. Strengthens all of us.
Right.
And I hope that that will always be the case.
Right. Lady Scotland, many thanks for making time to speak.